why I feel so good about America, and why I feel so good about myself and our prospects for change in this country in a way that I honestly have never felt before. And the reason I think that we're in a situation right now where we can be optimistic is because we are being exposed to a level of dysfunction in our government, the likes of which we have not before seen. That truly never was. What I mean is, we are in a situation where the functionality of our government and its ability to manifest and harness the intent or the intentions of the electorate is explicitly proving itself as incapable of doing so. And because it is so clear, in a way that it really never has been before, that the electoral process and the system of government is clearly not responding to the intentions or wishes of the electorate, that it actually adds a tremendous amount of energy to the otherwise largely disengaged and apathetic portion of our population, which is massive. And it is only, unfortunately, in the face of the explicit dysfunction that we are witnessing, that you actually are able to see the energy build around people like the folks in this room. So there are lots of people in this room that have incredibly honorable and admirable causes and life's work and honorable capitalism and honorable energy and honorable government and honorable environment. But the barrier to the honorable intention of any individual, however motivated, however well capitalized, however well organized you may be, has been a system of government that has found itself completely deaf to the electorate. We must seize the opportunity that is 2012, not to intervene, obviously, in the nature of the course of the election. The election I look at, quite honestly, like a runaway freight train. The best advice, if there's a runaway freight train near you, for future reference, is to back away. That is the point of view that I take towards the 2012 election. I believe that the 2012 election will be illustrative, not just to the people in this room, but to the people in this country, as to the dysfunction or the disconnectedness of the electoral process from the intentions and desires of the electorate. I believe there are specific reasons why the electoral process is not responsive to the electorate. One of those, obviously, is the fact that our politicians are desperately dependent on fundraising in order to retain their jobs, and those who are willing and able to contribute money pay that money primarily to prevent things from happening, not to make things happen. Look no further than the money that went into the healthcare legislative debate to prevent a more significant restructuring of American healthcare. Look at the money that went into the financial reform debate and the money that ultimately prevented significant restructuring in the banking sector. There's I think, a misperception that money is used in politics for people to get what they want. But I believe that that is incorrect. I believe money in politics is there to preserve and prevent the very change that is the political rhetoric of our time, but it's not the actual process, because the machine is simply not designed to do it. There's a second component to the machine that makes it impossible for the electoral machine to represent the electoral interests of the people of this country. And it is very simply the fact that we obviously have gerrymandered districts. And having gerrymandered political districts in a country that has 33% Democrats or 34% Democrats, 33% Republicans, and 33% independents, when there's basically not a single political district in all of America that has that representation. And as long as you have a districting process that ensures that the more extreme, so for instance, if I was running against anybody in this room, let's say for Congress from the West Village, everybody in this room knows that the West Village is populated with a bunch of communists. In order to be elected by those communists, we would have to compete with one another to be more communist than the other one. Similarly, there are many districts that have very conservative natures, and the competition in that environment becomes to be more conservative than your opponent. In the process, everybody looks around and says, how does it get more extreme? Well, the system is designed to actually identify and promote and cultivate the most extreme point of view. Not because people are more extreme, but because the system that we collectively have agreed to participate in seeks to identify the most extreme aspects while simultaneously making all of our politicians dependent on this economic structure. The issues that will bear themselves out in this country next year, from income disparity to the joblessness, to the way we will deal with the upcoming effective collapse of the Eurozone, or whatever that will be, but it will be abominable, we all know it, will further demonstrate that the government is not doing that. This will create, and has created, a ball of fire. You see it in the occupation, you see it in the participation in political organizations that seek to get money out of politics, that seek to redistrict elections, that seek to engage in the reform that we're talking about. I believe that it is not only our opportunity, but it is our necessity not to deny the fury that exists as a result of the perceived game rigging that has become so prevalent in our country, but to acknowledge the existence of that fury and to know that it exists and must be harnessed in a way that actually helps us solve the problem. For if we do not harness the energy that is easily observable, that energy will go in a path that is not necessarily the one that we or you or whoever the person may be would want. And so it's not simply good enough to sit back and say, this will work itself out. It is for us to look at that ball of energy and say to us, how can we harness that energy individually and collectively to actually direct it to solve the problem? For me, that was a decision to push towards getting money out of politics. Money in politics, as you all know, it has been the #2 issue in almost every political organization I've ever talked to. #2. So you meet with the liberal organizations and they say, well, you know, we're really into the environment and we're very concerned about energy and then money in politics. Or I could list countless versions. The beauty of this moment and also the precariousness of this moment is the obvious fact that money is not and should not be your #2 issue, whoever you may be, that it must be your #1 issue. The reason for that is obvious. You cannot address a real debate for America on energy independence, on employment, on health, on education, on our electoral process itself, as long as it is trapped in this vice. This will be my final comment, and then I'm going to get you into the actual restructuring that Common Cause is working on. There's a reason why I chose this, because I'm very excited personally to learn of the redistricting plan that will be presented to all of us here tonight that will give us a window into how New York may be looking at it, or how Common Cause suggests New York ought to look at it. At the same time, we're seeing other states. California passed a redistricting proposition in the most recent election. I think we're going to see more of that. And it is the engagement in the alternate path, as opposed to the engagement. I've spent a lot of the past 3 years of my life talking about the problem, saying, we've got to deal with this right away. I don't believe that that is my highest value proposition or anybody else's. It is our highest value proposition is to use our energy and our resources to reveal to people what the alternate paths are, such that when we reject the incumbent structure, it is much clearer what else might be done. so that you can get yourself out of the absurd situation of indicting whatever the issue may be without being able to propose an alternate structure that could be considered. And the reason, again, that I'm excited to see the redistricting issues here tonight, and I'm excited about the momentum around money and politics in general, is that I believe that we are at a point where you have a wide variety of people, many of whom are in this room, who have been working for years, in many cases decades, to create different ways to do things. And at the same time, you have a heightened level of national awareness to actually acknowledge the existence of the problem, which, if we collectively decide to work on this, not just us in this room, but us in this country, that we will be in a situation to harness that fire toward explosive growth. That the opportunity for us is explosive growth. Our efficiency ratio at stationary power generation facilities in this country right now is from Dwight Eisenhower, 34%. Japan's at 90%, Germany's at 80%. That's what I call upside. If you look at almost every major national piece of our infrastructure, or our health system and cost savings, or our educational system and learning, it is riddled with upside, and this is a country riddled with people who have solutions. And it is only for us, I believe, as a part of a continuing wave of people in this country who have always aspired to a more fair and more equal nation. We all know it never has been. But that the aspiration, the permanent aspiration to that fairness is what is central to the reason people like you come to a room like this, or the reason somebody like myself comes to a room to be with you. And this is the moment where that happens. But I believe that the key to that is to not fight with next year's election, but to use next year's election as a tutorial in what's wrong. And that as we understand the dysfunction as it is displayed through the auction process, in which 94% of the time, the politician that raises the most money wins. That is not an election, that's an auction. And as that is better understood, the need to cease and end that auction, both through money and politics and also through the end of gerrymandering, becomes crystal clear. And with that said, I want to introduce Susan Rubenstein, who will set up the presentation of the Common Cause New York redistricting.